This episode of Watch Out for Fireballs is brought to you by I See Spiders. Thank you, I See Spiders. It's the sentence and the patron. Everyone who patronizes us at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv is great. We appreciate all of you. One quick note, I just moved. My sound setup isn't completely done. So there's a couple little rough, plosive sounds that pop through because I'm still adjusting to my setup. And I'm sorry about that. Thank you. And on to the show for this very, very good game. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about Heat Signature, which is a roguelite game developed and published by Suspicious Developments for the PC in 2017.
Yeah.
Yep.
Continue. This is executive produced by I See Spiders, which is a sentence and a name.
It is. And
it's cool because it gave me an opportunity and an excuse to play this game.
What a neat game,
that is great.
Gary. Yeah, this is really good.
This is the shit.
This is the shit in a year that has been, had a higher incidence of roguelikes than we've had in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, yes, this is a roguelite, but also it is really hard to describe, actually. And yeah,
I wasn't expecting there to be this many roguelikes this year or this many Hotline Miami likes.
Yeah.
But 2021, full of surprises. And we ain't done with the roguelikes, brother.
Nope.
We got more coming down the pike. Pike or pipe?
Pike is my understanding. Although if you say pipe, that also works because I understand what you mean.
Pipe maybe works better.
Yeah.
Pike is a spear.
Yeah. Like coming down the turnpike, I think is what it usually is.
What if that was called the turnpipe though?
That would be weird.
Yeah, I think it'd be better because the pipe goes to places. Anyway, we can debate this at length another time.
Yeah, well, I'll put that on the agenda for next time.
Yeah, really at length. So we'll describe what this game is eventually. Narratively, you play as a series of these rebels who are attempting to liberate this nebula that is full of acid, that is a currency, from the grips of these 4 different factions that dominate it.
Yes, you are here. You're a bunch of you're a bunch of independents trying to free up the drift, is what it is, and you're working for an old spy, an old mercenary named Seder Fiasco, who is kind of orchestrating things. And everything that you do, all of the missions that you take from various clients, involve infiltrating these ships and accomplishing goals within them.
Yes, that is the basic unit of play in this. It is structured as a roguelite. So the content is procedurally generated. There's a pretty bare bones story that is mostly flavor text. So we're mostly going to focus on mechanics and the way these systems kind of work together. Disclosure, neither of us got to the end state of this. There is a way to get credits.
Yes.
It takes a long time, and it is engaging with this very fun system for a long time to get there. For my part, I moved and all my stuff was put away and didn't have a chance to get through it. But I definitely feel like I get the game. But if you're just like, oh, you guys haven't done due diligence, like we can definitely talk about Heat Signature. It's just roguelike rules apply.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, and also this is one of those things that is kind of easy to play, but hard to master kind of deals.
Very much so.
Yeah. Like the way that the missions get harder is by kind of like mixing around the different adjectives related to individual missions, kind of adding on differing and varying combinations of these modifiers for each individual mission. So like, it's not like you are going and there's like a mid-game like genre shift or something like that, or there's a huge new ability that's done halfway through. You're going to be doing a lot of the same stuff from beginning to end, but like playing through the entire game is like doing an entire campaign where you are taking over the entire galaxy and unlocking like better items that will pop up in shops for you to reliably buy, items that you otherwise could have found randomly in chests and stuff like that.
Yeah, that roguelite progression.
Yeah.
As we're getting into it. So we're going to kind of, as we go through these mechanics, kind of explain what type of game it is as we go. But it is, it's not like there aren't games that this takes inspiration from, but there's nothing that plays exactly like this.
Yep.
So the devil is going to kind of be in the details. And it's also something where learning about us explaining it and learning the mechanics of it is going to be additive instead of subtractive, I think.
Yeah.
So, no worries about spoilers. But this is an unqualified recommendation and it's currently on sale for like a couple bucks. So, if anything, if we can get more people to buy this game, that would be great.
It rules
because it's cool. Yeah, it rules.
I was really surprised by how much this got in my blood. Yeah.
Looking forward to playing more. And I mean it this time, even though I always just move on to the next thing I have to do for work.
Yeah.
I'm certainly going to play more of this.
It's also this weirdly atomic kind of game where individual runs are very tiny. So like loading it up for 10 minutes, a lot of roguelikes, the smallest, unit of time you can spend with it is like a half an hour, right? For like a quick or failed run. This, you're in, you're out, right?
It's almost irresponsibly one more run. Like you can just kind of continually build on that and just take a couple minutes each time. It made me feel like the kind of central mechanic of this, of boarding ships and doing these tasks. I almost want to see a game that has JRPG rhythms, but this instead of encounters. And just fewer of them, but like that kind of stat progression and like a story.
Yeah.
It's such a cool little new atomic unit of gameplay. It feels like.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So this is made by Tom Francis, is kind of an auteur, not solely made by him, but largely made by him, who is a former editor at PC Gamer. And he released the indie game Gunpoint in 2013. Did you get time in with Gunpoint? Are you familiar with Gunpoint?
Oh yeah, I love Gunpoint. That would be a really
Gunpoint's awesome.
That'd be a fun game to do. Like if we're looking for a short, WAF, because it is well written and also like a good stealth game.
Yeah, and friend of the show Ryan Ike did the soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
But that game was a big hit, and a big enough hit to kind of fund this game's development, which took a little bit over 3 years.
Yeah. So the team for this was similarly tiny to the team that they made Gunpoint with. Francis did the design and most of the coding, and then John Roberts returned to do the art. And Francis was nervous when he put this out because, in terms of the indie game, scene and how crowded the market is, 2017 is very different than 2013. He was worried that he would not be able to kind of like recapture kind of the same success. But those worries were unfounded. It did quite well. It outsold Gunpoint within its first week. I didn't hear an awful lot of people talking about it, but obviously it sold really well. So yeah.
Will Hughes is a big booster. Has been trying to get me to play this for a long time.
Yeah. That's gotta suck.
Yes. But I just got to take his recommendations with a grain of salt, because a lot of times it's like, here's this visual novel, but get this, there's many worlds theory stuff in the end. I'm like, fuck it, dude, I know. I understand that's what the genre does. Oh, there's time traveling. You're talking to yourself at some point. I get it. Like, I am not that impressed with it. It's okay. Movies have been doing it for a long time, dude. Cool it. So I just assumed this was going to be more of that bullshit, Like, oh, okay, it's boring for 90% of it, but there's a time travel twist at the end. But no, it is not that at all. So, this is, as we mentioned, this has been really well supported. So there's tons of updates. If we're talking about something and you're like, oh, that wasn't there when I played it, check it back on it, because they've added tons of stuff.
Yeah.
It does make getting into it now like mildly overwhelming. The UI and everything kind of feels made for people who have been following it with this ramp up of complexity. But you can, with a little bit of time, you'll acclimate.
Yes. Yeah. One thing that I love is that the first update was called the Fair Points update, and it was entirely addressing like post-launch reviews and like complaints that people had. And it's like, oh yeah, like that those are actually good ideas. Let's get those in there. That is such a I don't know. I love the vibe of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It is Tom Francis in general has a great vibe. His blog is really good. If you've never read, and a really good Twitter follow as well.
Yeah.
But really pretty cool philosophically about games.
Yeah.
I think. So the game starts with an introduction and tutorial, in which we play kind of our, handler for the rest of the game. This veteran spy named Satyr Fiasco. You're ejected from this small ship into the vacuum of space, and she kind of monologues about how she didn't plan her retirement this way.
Right.
That just happened. It's not like that, but
right. But just Tom Francis has a thing for knocking people out of windows.
The trailer for this is great for that. Like, since time immemorial, we've wanted to knock people out of windows in video games. And it shows gunpoint. Can you imagine doing it in space?
Yep. But the game kind of picks up during this, having you catch Satyr with your pod and then capture a ship. Kind of like, okay, we're going to start Satyr's own endgame, set the plot in motion, where you have to get in here and then do the tutorial, which teaches you teleporting items to you and drawing guard attention and the difference between like melee and ranged weapons. We'll talk about all those a little bit later. But the plan is she's going to capture this ship and send it on a suicide trajectory towards this place called Cold Rock Haven, kind of this station at the center of the nebula.
Yes. Yeah. Cold Rock Haven has changed hand 4 times this year alone, and this will be the 5th and last time. So we're in this kind of like roiling area of power struggles.
Yeah.
The final little tutorial thing they do, you pilot your breach pod, which is just like a little shuttlecraft. They've got a goofy name, but it's a shuttlecraft, to catch you while the title and credits go. And then we go to the bar at Cold Rock, and we get to select our first character of this. We're going to talk about that, like what characters start with and everything, a little bit later. But that's kind of our tutorial, and now we will expand upon.
Yeah. So we should talk about the aesthetics, because it's hard to find places to talk about those in these roguelike episodes because they're structured so funny. But this game makes a first impression that I found a little bit off-putting to a certain degree. It was a little bit hard to read before I understood the flow of it. So this does take place from an entirely top-down perspective. And a cool thing about it is that there's a huge zoom range. Everything in the nebula is simulated, and you can zoom, from like down to, down on a single room all the way out to seeing the entire like tactical map.
Yes. Yeah. And it's overhead characters, kind of like a Hotline Miami, like not the same grotesque style, but the same, arm swinging to indicate movement.
Yes. Yeah.
Walking kind of thing, and fairly low detail. There's some like actual like interesting details inside the rooms every once in a while. But the main thing I think about with the art here is that it's pretty functional.
Yeah.
In terms of not having, so like things that you can interact with tend to be outsized or glow. And if an object is in a room and you can interact with it, it's always in the middle of the room. And anything that isn't one of those things is a background detail.
Yeah.
There's no chuff or chaff. There's no just here's an object.
Yeah. The where the art style kind of like got on the wrong side of me was that oftentimes, especially in some of like the busier biomes, it was hard to tell that there was an enemy there a lot of the time. If they weren't doing something that kind of created a glow around them. So like I would go through a room that I thought was empty, and then, oops, things are slowing down. I've got a bullet coming at me.
Yeah. This I could see that kind of happened to me for like the first couple runs. and then I just kind of acclimated to the water temperature. For it. It does mean that, like, looking at this game in a screenshot, it looks like a map for another game.
It does.
It doesn't look like you're playing a video game. It looks like this is a UI screen in a more visually impressive video game.
Yeah. And I guess I put this toward the front to lead with that, because this doesn't necessarily make a good impression in screenshots, right? Like, if I shared a shot of this on Twitter, or if I saw one, it would be hard to make heads or tails of it if it wasn't in motion. I want people to really like just take it on faith that the play is there and makes up for that.
Well, it's very much like a Gary Butterfield game in that this game is 1000% about doing cool things rather than looking cool.
Yeah.
Like a thing that I don't really respect in games is when I press one button and then my character does a bunch of ninja flips. Like really dramatic, like things. It's like, well, all I did was like literally move my thumb, a quarter centimeter. Like, I'm getting this huge reward for that, but I'm getting this huge visual feedback, and that to me feels like noise.
Yeah.
To me, I don't like being made to feel cool. In this game, nothing looks cool. But you can do the coolest shit in the world.
You do amazingly cool things in this. Yeah,
just like really, really expressive improv based play that makes you feel like a total badass, even if somebody over your shoulder would not be able to read it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, like, read it at all is kind of what gets down to it. Like, it's not like I'm wishing that this was a Bayonetta or a Revengeance or anything like that. It's more like, I don't want it to be that. Like, that's not necessarily not necessarily the aesthetic that I'm chasing down. It's more just like, at a glance, can I tell, like, can I read this? Can I see, what the dynamic is, what action is happening on the screen, and stuff like that. Yeah.
No, I wasn't saying that to dismiss your criticism of it. I was saying specifically, like, this is a very intentional, you do cool things, you don't look cool.
Yeah.
Kind of aesthetic. Like, just speaking to that part. Like, there are things that could be done to make it more readable. You can actually do an overlay that adds a grid to everything. If I were going to add to the Fair Points update, I almost think that an overlay that turned into a VR mission, and got rid of the background textures would possibly be useful. Because that stuff doesn't really matter. I understand why they don't do that, because it's a hard sell.
Yeah.
It would look like a free itch.io game, right. But it's a, that stuff, it just legitimately doesn't matter. It's all entirely in the play and what you're doing.
Yeah. That does melt away. Not to say that there isn't, like, cool stuff that the visuals do. Like, the different factions, they all have kind of a different ethos and different, kind of like functions that they serve, just what they specialize in. And each of their ships has like a distinctive layout and also like a distinctive, kind of tile set. And
the layout matters a lot.
Yes.
Like different factions will have harder ships to infiltrate because they have a different shipbuilding philosophy to it. So they look different, but they also play differently as well. Like, this is one of the most play first games we've ever done. And that is just something that I respect with all of my entire heart.
Yep.
Music in this is really good. Kind of electronica, like spacey music. It matches what you're doing. The tension is correct, because this is a game where, we'll talk about it, but you take your time in this, and then shit breaks loose. Like, this is another thing that this is one of my favorite articulations of stealth until it's not. In a video game, and the music matches that.
Yeah, the music matches that, and also, like, that is built into the writing of this. One of my favorite lines in this is, you have to have a meticulous plan and then a backup meticulous plan and then be able to improvise after that. Like, just the amount of, kind of like equal emphasis that they have on both planning and improvisation is it's perfect to me.
Yeah. Like we talked about that before, like where when you're playing a video game, the line of what you're doing in situation versus before it, so like an example we used a lot on the show is the line between Dark Souls and Sekiro. Is in Dark Souls, you spend a lot more time planning. And in Sekiro, you just get in there and use your reflexes. For the most part, like, it's a continuum, but one is closer to the other. This game has a really great mix, and it's designed to play with that mix. Like that is the design goal of it.
Let's talk about the loop. let's do it, because this is, again, one of the most compulsive loops I've found in gaming. Actually,
it's how you spend almost all your time.
Hard to stop. Yeah.
This is the game.
Yeah. So I think the best way to do this will be to talk about the bare bones basic systems that are in the core loop. And then after this, kind of elaborate on the different variables that can be plugged into them. Does that make sense to you?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will do my best to make that make sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll try. I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but I'll try.
Okay.
So you start off in a base, and you pick your mission from a randomized list. These are sorted by difficulty. Difficulty is determined by these parameters, and these kind of parameters of what you have to do on the mission, what kind of modifiers there are, and what kind of opposition you'll be facing in terms of guards and security systems.
Yeah. Number of guards and what they're carrying, what they're armored with, etc. All of that makes a huge difference. It's important
you can see all this stuff.
Yes.
This is of the Into the Breach model of like, no, like tell the player the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. No surprises except, I guess different kinds of surprises, because there are still, situations that can get up under you. Right.
But there's not like rock, paper, scissors surprises. Like,
right.
If you can see that there are guards that have, shields, so you need to bring something that can subvert shields. Mm-hmm. Before you go, you're not going to get stuck on a mission usually without the tools, because tool picking out is a core part of the game.
Yes. Yeah. So, you pick your mission, then you can use the shop that's at each base to pick your tools. You can stock up on whatever you need to meet the challenges, and then you hop into your breach pod and fly to the target ship. And I love piloting these little ships. Just those
It's so goofy.
Those Newtonian, like, just Starflight kind of of things. Yeah.
It's so slapstick. Like, it's so funny how the perfect run of this is so badass, and then just smashing into the side of a ship over and over until you eventually get to the dock.
Just like a little bumblebee.
It's very much, it's like a bumblebee going to ride like a bird. You know, is what this feels like a lot of the time. The controls are very simple. You just have an accelerator and you control with the mouse. So that's how I did it. Mm-hmm. And then a brake, and the brake will let you match velocity with whatever you're closest to. Mm-hmm. Which is really smart. It feels really intuitive. Yeah. Even though it's not really how like brakes work.
Yeah.
It's super intuitive. You steer in the direction you want to go, and you want to get to the airlock of the ship you're going to. Sometimes ships will have things you can avoid or have to avoid on the outside of them. You're aiming for one specific little node.
Usually what you're trying to avoid is like searchlights that represent the missile targeting. Like if you run into those, then they'll fire a missile at you. And if your pod is broken, you have to do like a little button mashing mini game to fix it before it completely falls apart.
It's not mashing. It's this weird like hold this but don't hold this. It's this very clever little mini game that I like a lot.
Yeah, just follow these directions under duress. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Then when you get inside, so you get inside the ship, you're safe as long as you're inside your pod, and you can. What's really important is you can look around here and scan the entire ship.
Yep.
Inside the ship, you control very similar to Hotline Miami. So WASD, use the mouse to aim. You can use a controller, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel correct.
It would be difficult, I think. Yeah.
The ships are made very modularly. There are square segments that are rooms or corridors, and then corridors between them. Mm-hmm. And these are filled with incident.
Yep. Just capital I, incident. Be those guards, be those chests, be those fuel tanks, things like that. And you have to, based on the parameters of your mission, negotiate that incident, let's say.
Yes. So stealth is always an option here, and it's very rare that a mission, you won't use any stealth. Mm-hmm. But the stealth and the combat both interface with the core mechanic of this game, which this is a tactics roguelite real-time with pause game. At any moment, you can pause the game and issue commands You can aim in the pause menu. You can teleport items to you from other parts on the ship that you've dropped. You can interface with controls, execute unconscious enemies, things like that. And this is what turns this into not only like Hotline Miami, but kind of Super Hot.
Yeah, Super Hot's a good comparison.
As well.
Yeah.
It's real neat.
Yeah. Like, all right, I screwed up and I have like a spray of shotgun bullets coming at me. I paused. What do I have available to me to deal with this? Because I am not going to be able to get out of the way of the spread of this as it goes. So I don't want to get hit because, I'm going to be thrown out into space.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about
that. That's so funny. Especially because you get as many chances as you like. Yeah. So you're a real bad penny in this, like just continuously docking and being like, "Come on!"
It's like that meme of Mo throwing Barney out of the bar.
It's exactly that, except it can go like one of these missions. I did that like 6 times.
Yeah,
like you think you guys would just close your airlock, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and you have we'll talk about the individual tools, but the idea of I'm in trouble, I'm going to pause and see what's available to me is the core mechanic of this. And you have so many cool and fun tools that you can use creatively to get out of those problems. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have the other control of time you have is F to fast forward. So you can wait for a guard to either go on break or change his patrol route or throw you out of an airlock. And the other super hot bit is if a guard spots you, time slows down. A really clever thing is the guard will start talking and it will fill in one letter at a time above them. And you have until the word is completed. So if the guard is spelling intruder, you have until those letters come up to take care of that guard.
Yeah. Before it will go and, file an alert or something like that, and you have to decide, am I going to, deal with them by melee or ranged, lethal or non-lethal? You have all of these at your disposal.
Yes. The guards have different states, like a stealth game. They can be like shaky. They can be, on patrol looking for you, have seen you. When you pause and look at them, you can find all this stuff out, including their kit. Yep. So you see what they're armed with. You can also see their mental state and what they're doing. Like, are they on patrol? Are they lounging? Etc.
Yeah.
The melee weapons of this have a dash associated with them, so you don't have to get right up next to enemies, which lets you close distances equally. But they also have cooldowns, so you can't just hit pause, and just make your way through an entire level.
Right.
You have to kind of mix up your things to take out a series of enemies at once.
Yeah. And so this often involves, because you can pause and because changing gear is a free action, it involves, slashing somebody with one sword and then attacking another one with a different one. And then to take out the third guy, putting a gun into your hand, to take him out. Or, and
then teleporting behind the guard that walks in, for 2 seconds, slashing him in the back, and then ending up back in your original place just in time for the bullets to miss you.
Yeah.
So,
or like somebody will fire a gun at you. You think, okay, I've got a swapper, so I will swap positions with you, and boom, you just shot yourself.
Yeah, it's not dissimilar to Dishonored.
Yeah.
In that way, like when you're messing with placement and timing. In terms of projectiles, like you do all the same tricks you can do in Dishonored.
Yeah.
You can also throw items.
I love doing that so much.
Yeah. Really useful. You can kill or knock an enemy out. You can use it to grab their attention. And there's a series of traps you can leave as well. So if you like throw a wrench into an area where you set up a trap, the guard will walk into that wrench and get trapped.
Yeah. Something that it took me a while to remember I had at my disposal was the ability to teleport any loose item on the ship to my position. Like this isn't a game where you're going to be like compulsively picking everything up in order to like sell it because it's worthless, right? Regular, items will, sell for, generally like 1 acid, if anything at all. You get most of your money by doing missions, and you have a very limited inventory. But like if you killed somebody and they had a particular kind of gun that would be useful in that situation, you can just remember that it's there, go into your pause, and then warp it to yourself. And then you use that to attack the next guy, and then warp his weapon to you, et cetera, et cetera. So something that with this time manipulation, like what I wanted, and I'm sure they looked at possibly trying to do, and maybe it was just too much of a technical problem. I wanted a replay that showed what happened in real time, actually.
Oh, sure.
Like at the end of the mission, like press the button here, so you could see like in real time what you did. Like in a like a Meat Boy kind of fashion, right?
Yeah. I think that maybe part of the reason why that wasn't in was because of how things look in this. Like, I think again, this game doesn't look cool. Mm-hmm. Like, it's cool because what happened.
Yeah.
But visually, it's just going to be little ants going, and then like some of them are dead.
Yeah.
That teleporting anything to you bit is really key in this, because what it means is that every enemy in the game is also a resource. Mm-hmm. You can end up in a situation where you're like, oh, I'll never make it. Like, the alarm's going to go off in 10 seconds. I can't make it to the pilot's chair to turn that off. I'm fucked. I don't have anything with me. But you can pause and then look at the kit of the guards and like, oh shit, this guard has a visitor on him, which is a type of teleporter we'll talk about. If I get that, I might just make it.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I need to kill that guard, pause, so to stop the clock, pick up his, thing, or move and then teleport his thing to me, etc.
Yeah.
Extremely good.
Yeah. So what you get is like an awful lot of success that happens on the margins, and yes. Extremely improbable success that happens on the margins that is the result of engaging with the time stop system and really paying attention to the, or being aware of the situation that you're in.
Yeah. It simulates that kind of like wacky heist, barely making it. Mm-hmm. Feeling really well.
Yeah.
As good as any game that I can think of. Mm-hmm. In that.
Yeah.
So.
So you have the weapons, right? Your guns and stuff like that, but you also have gadgets that kind of like generally fall into like teleporters, things that will disable ship or enemy kind of advantages, and also just straight up bullet time.
Yeah. And shields.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. In this game, teleporting is called glitching. It's one of the factions. And in the lore of it, I think is cool, is that like teleportation technology exists, but it's not steady, which is why there's no just blink.
Right.
Like you can't just teleport. There are also, as you're kind of moving through this using your things, there are features of the room that you could use to your advantage. A lot of rooms have a fuel container in the middle. If you explode this, it destroys the room and turns that room into another airlock, like a little force field will pop up. So you can blow that up, suck people out of it, who die, pick yourself up with your own ship and then go back in. You can also blow things up from the outside to create new airlocks with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. Also windows, as mentioned by the trailer. So you can create kind of an airlock, if somebody's very armored, and again, you don't have a weapon that will get through their armor. If you shoot the window behind them, it'll suck them out into space.
Yeah. And it'll suck you out, but guess what? You have oxygen and they don't.
Yeah. You're great. You got your little breach pod.
Yeah. It's just Tuesday,
Exactly.
Yeah. You've got gun turrets as well. These are incredibly dangerous because most of their projectiles, they move over time. You can avoid them if you are canny with your pausing. With the automated gun turrets, they shoot instantly. However, you can, you can subvert them and then lure enemies in. And no matter how many bodies people see in that one doorway, they will just continue running into it.
So you'll check it out.
Yeah, it's just a real problem with the toilet.
Attractive nuisance. The turrets in this are really fair. They turn really slowly, and you can walk up behind them and just turn them off.
Yes.
Which is how I dealt with almost all of them. I was like, and I really appreciate that. But they can, to your point, they can be a real asset if you have the item that allows you to hack. basically. Using all these things together is what the game is, and we'll talk about these individual elements so you can kind of, in your head, if you've never played this, put together a picture of how this stuff might go together. And if you're a certain kind of gamer typographic who likes expressive play and doing cool things instead of looking at cool things, you will start rubbing your hands together thinking of the possibilities of this stuff.
So let's talk about failure and success. So,
in general.
I mean, just in life. Welcome to our seminar. If a guard spots you, or if you fire a weapon, like weirdly, there are multiple levels of silence, like silencers. So they're like quiet guns and silent guns. You can actually see when you are holding the gun and in pause, like what the radius is for a noise that you're about to make, which is neat. But regardless, somebody sees you or they hear that, they will go and raise an alarm, and a few different things happen depending on a particular kind of attribute of your mission, the alarm response. What you're hoping for is that the alarm does nothing. But that quickly stops being the case above like easy or some medium missions.
Very commonly, the ship will go towards a base, go towards a home base. That puts a time limit on your mission here. So, and depending on the difficulty of the mission and the quality of the ship, that will take different amounts of time there. There can also be reinforcements that will pop out, including these kind of special reinforcement units, which we'll talk about later, that will pop out. The cool thing is, though, you're not fucked if this happens. You have a couple different ways out of it. If you can get to the pilot's chair and kill the pilot, you can stop this. Like you stop the ship from moving, so it's not going to go back to the base. You can also destroy the ship's engines, which will leave it dead in the water. For you to harvest. Or,
and I ended up doing this an awful lot. I just finished the mission and got out.
And you improv your way out of, this is a game where I have 2 seconds. I can't make it back to my pod. I'm going to shoot out the window, jump through, and have my pod pick me up. Which is like the coolest, fucking most dramatic thing that happens in movies and stuff. You get to do in this game naturally through play and not through a cutscene.
Oh, just I love as a matter of course. And like, it's pretty tense, sometimes like catch yourself. You have a time limit. You have to, use those goofy Newtonian physics. Like you have to catch up and match yourself. Like, it's not a given that you're going to succeed. But if this is a part of your plan, then you can kind of, get ready for it. You can remote control to get your pod near the ship before you do a dangerous maneuver, etc. Stuff like that.
If you get shot or knocked out, so lethal or non-lethal damage, the enemies pick you up and toss you out an airlock.
Get out of here!
Like so much yesterday's breakfast. You have to grab your pod. The two differences is if you were just knocked unconscious, if it's a non-lethal faction, you're fine. Like you have a time limit, you have oxygen, but you can pick yourself up. If it's a lethal thing, you'll suffer blood loss, and that will determine how much time you have next time it happens. That's one of the only stats or bits of continuity of character. Everything else is equipment. Like you don't really have stats in this game other than that.
And there's no like health bar that you have. If you're hit, you're hit. So you initially, if you suffer a lethal injury, you have 30 seconds, and the next, that goes down by 6 every time. And this led to hilarious things where like, my guy had a really good run, but then over the course of one mission, I went from 30 seconds down to 6. And I just pictured him like on the 5th time rolling back in with an IV cart behind him, just like limping to the pilot's chair. Like, I'm going to do it.
Forgetting how to hold your breath. Yeah. Like the iron lung that you bring with you. When you're on the ship itself, making your way to your goal, typically there are going to be locked doors and key cards on the way. So you're either going to find key cards on guards or find override panels. And there are different levels of this. So the level 1 locks, level 2 locks, level 3 locks. There are ways around this as well, which we'll talk about when we get to our gadgets. And then once you've accomplished your mission, you have to get back to your friendly base by any means necessary. So as we mentioned, blasting yourself out a window or making your way back to your ship. And there are different, you can ghost missions in this, and sometimes you're required to, but even if not, you get like a little bonus in one of the meta currencies. That we'll talk about.
So after a mission, you get your little report that shows you how many people you killed, how many times you were spotted, etc., and you get your payout. Your money is, this battery acid, but more importantly, you're given this liberation progress. Liberation is continuous across the save, and this is something that you're using your multiple runs across many different characters to fill up this meter and acquire these points. Which is important because when that meter fills up, you get the ability to free up one hostile station and win it over and add it to your faction.
Yes, this is kind of a mix. This looks a little bit like the skill board from Final Fantasy X, maybe.
Yeah,
You do these in order, but it's set up like a constellation, and this is your meta progression. This is how you unlock items to be available in the future. So like in, say, on Isaac, you beat this boss 5 times. This item can now appear in the basement. Here you do this, and it's like, oh, this is how you get the technology for silent weapons. Now silent weapons will start showing up.
Yeah.
In shops. Notably, this is not what will show up in your initial kits.
Right.
You can end up with that stuff ahead of time. This is just literally what you can buy.
Yeah.
There are also other things you can do. You can get. There are economic stations, which will give you a big chunk of money and make all future characters start.
Yeah.
With additional money. And then you can also unlock the different faction pods that have special abilities.
Yeah. And those are really different. Some of those are quite overpowered, actually.
Yeah. For me, there's like one really good one, and the rest of them are kind of not great for me. But the medical one, I got lots of use out of.
Oh, I love that brick that you can just make an airlock anywhere.
The brick is a great idea. I just had such a hard time observing or intuiting the map from the outside, to get a good point of entrance.
Yeah.
And that could be something I would learn. I would get better at as I played.
Yeah. So you're not just picking the stations that you want to unlock just because of what they're going to give you. Each of the different regions belongs to a certain faction. And when you free up enough stations within a particular faction's region, you unlock the ability to make runs on their stronghold. And if you take that stronghold, then you wipe that faction off the map. And kind of the meta goal for this is to, clear all 4 of the strongholds and get all these losers out of here.
Yeah. And that is how you get the actual ending sequence. Neither of us did that because it takes a long time and we're in roguelite rules. But it's a real tough mission. Yeah. Is what it is.
Huge ship.
So your character ends when you either retire them. So once you've done their personal mission, which we'll talk about, you can retire them. This allows you to pass down an item that you have. So if you found a rare item with rare attributes, you get to name it and pass it down into your future. And then your Steam friends can also find it. So you'll find other people's things, or this character dies when they die. And the only thing that maintains at that point is the liberation progress you've made. Everything else is gone.
Yeah. You might wonder, why would I retire somebody when they have a lot of money and when they have a lot of gear? It's because you get diminishing returns. So if you perform too many missions as that character, eventually you start getting less and less liberation for successfully clearing a mission. I like the story reason for this. So what you're doing when you get liberation, that's you showing people that resistance works. And people are more inspired by unlikely successes than by likely successes. So, if you have, Space Ace, nice valiant hero who always succeeds, people are like, well, yeah, that's not surprising. He can do it, but I can't. Right? Of course he can, but I can't do that. So you want to always be, working outside of that penalty in order to maximize your gains.
Yes. Yeah. The other kind of meta currency you'll get is something called glory.
Yeah.
Which is just for bragging rights.
Yes.
I just want to mention it. I didn't really engage with this system, but your characters, we'll talk about the different perks and quirks they can get. This tends to affect glory, and they really kind of smartly make this a weird leaderboard mechanic. And don't try to, fuck you over for not caring about glory.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people play this game at a very high level. Like,
Yeah.
people really enjoy taking on the most difficult situations they can.
Let's talk about the character selection.
Let's do.
Yeah. So these are randomly generated from just kind of like, a list of names. So it's not like Gungeon, where you have these specific characters with backstory. You get a random name. The character starts with a random gear loadout, different starting money that can be influenced by your meta progress, attributes, which can either be positive or negative, which affect glory, as we mentioned. And then a backstory.
Right.
Which we'll talk about a personal mission. So there's a lot of these. We're not going to talk about every individual perk or quirk, but imagine like a perk list of like a Fallout game.
Yeah.
Or what have you.
Yeah.
It's not worth talking about them individually, but it's pretty neat. These can be really huge.
Yeah. Or they can be, mostly neutral, there's one that I ended up favoring an awful lot, which is unambitious, which is, I love the tooltip for that. Like, your personal mission isn't actually that hard. So you can take this guy, and then you're not going to have like a broad advantage for everybody, but they're a really easy way to get a liberation point. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I ended up making tons of use of the guys who reduce the cooldown for blades. That allows you to actually kind of become this like whirling death thing. The cooldown can almost become almost nothing. And then there's another one where your weapons, when you pick them up, they recharge. We'll talk about the different weapon classes. That's huge, though.
Yeah.
Not having to worry about ammo is just ridiculous in this, and very, very good.
Yeah.
But you can be rich. You can be an heir. So that means you start with a really powerful item. You can be a liberator. These were added in actually one of the updates.
Yeah.
Because liberation missions were difficult. So they made characters that are preloaded with like really good gear specifically for liberation missions.
Yeah. And on the negative side, if you're looking at getting, more glory, which is kind of the only positive reason to do this, you can like get perks that make you unable to use melee weapons, like you're really frail or you're a terrible shot. Like your bullets don't go where you aim them. Like you can be blacklisted from ships, or one that I found really interesting,
Shops.
like. Oh yeah, from oh god, blacklisted from
like you're not allowed here.
Ships.
We're throwing you out. I know.
Yeah. Shops, blacklisted from shops. One that I did just because I thought it was interesting. I wasn't really looking for glory, but the dying attribute is neat because you only have 10 minutes of game time to use that character. That ended up being like an excuse to just try really audacious things with very little. I'm going to pick this guy in order to free up that slot for maybe somebody who has like less of a detriment, or a better perk in relation to that. But like, okay, I have 10 minutes to do as much stupid stuff as possible. And by reducing the amount of like investment that I had in that particular character, I actually squeaked out some pretty cool stuff.
It has like its sister mechanic in the glitch back missions, which are also there to encourage you to do stupid stuff. Like there's a lot of game design cleverness here in the good way of encouraging you to do stuff that is more wild, like in a very player forward, non-punishing way.
Yeah.
It's not, like we want players to engage with this kind of system, so we're going to make it obnoxious not to.
Right.
It's more carrot than stick, for the most part. Each character, as we mentioned, has a personal mission. This is either like steal something back or rescue somebody or assassinate somebody. You have to pay Seder Fiasco for this intel. Cost out the gate 200 acid. And doing these are really tough missions, but they give you a liberation point and makes your character legendary so you can pass down good items, which will then make future runs easier.
Yeah.
You're investing in the future. You also get tons of money. So if you are trying to beat a specific tough mission, if you can do your personal mission, you can then buy out the shop if you need to.
Yeah.
You have limited inventory slots. You're not going to buy out the shop, but there are items in the shop that are pretty spendy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you get tons of money for your personal mission usually.
So it's good to prioritize those. You know what the personal mission is going to be when you pick that character. So if you know that you're terrible at hijacking missions, you can avoid those guys if you like.
Yeah.
It's all data to help you make an informed choice of who you're going to roll with for the next 10 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about mission types, because I mentioned those hijacking ones. This is funny because, you end up getting all of this sounds like there's a very small amount of variation between them. Okay, 5 mission types. How complicated could this be? Oh, 5 or 6, variations on those. How many can they be? All of this ends up recombining in different configurations to mean that there's a huge amount of variety in this. So keep that in mind as we lay these out, if you think they sound kind of samey.
Like a lot of the time you are just trying to get to a specific room in the ship. So in that way it's really samey, but there's a lot of variation that comes with the wrinkles and the like that you're going to run into. So steal, you have to grab an item from a chest, bring it back to your pod. Pretty basic. Capture and rescue are really similar. There's an enemy that you either have to knock out and take, or an ally that is in like a jail cell, more or less. Like it's not really a jail cell, but it's kept in a room you have to pick up and carry to your pod.
Yeah. Assassinate, pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You have to use a lethal weapon on them to kill them, or knock them out and then use the kill option in the pause menu. I ended up out of desperation trying this, seeing if it could work. You don't actually have to be on the ship for this to happen. So you can just bombard that ship with missiles from another ship. If their ship goes down, they die and it counts.
We didn't really talk about it because it's not part of the mission, but one of the really clever little bits of this game is there are just ships that are not critical to your mission.
Yeah.
So you can go and harvest those either for a chance at good items and kind of jump the item curve, or you can get in the ship, kill everyone on board, and use it as to fire missiles.
Yeah.
It's really tricky too, because the missile fire button is what you usually use for your brake, your match velocity thing. So the ship battles can end up being like hilariously asteroidsy.
Yep, you just end up overshooting each other all the time.
Yeah, really silly.
Yeah.
Assassinations are great. They tend to be a little bit harder, but they're harder in terms of what the game says the difficulty, so you get better rewards. I never found them actually more difficult to do.
Yeah.
Than anything like that, but they tend to be like kind of medium and up.
Yeah. And like with a lot of these, you don't need to clear out the entire ship, so sometimes if you just end up getting lucky on a steal mission and the chest is right near the entrance, right near the airlock, you go in, Yahtzee, you can go and get your payout, and you can decide if it's worth trying to clear out other parts of this to get for a chance at better items and stuff.
Yeah. Hijackings are the most involved. You have to take out the entire ship's crew and then take out the pilot and set the ship on an autopilot to a friendly base. So those are the ones where you have to kind of clear everything.
Yeah. And ships can get pretty big. You're going to find, some of these, if they're harder, they're going to have like 15 to 25 guards on them and stuff like that. And you need to take care of all of them. So hijackings end up being weighted toward the more difficult side.
Yeah. Or they can just have a skeleton crew. And during the Halloween update, they're actually skeletons.
Yay!
Because, hey. So, did you say liberation missions?
No, we haven't talked about those just yet. Yeah.
It's very similar to hijacking.
Yes.
You have to get off the ship.
The first time I did this, I didn't realize what was happening. So I was like, okay, I'll set the trajectory. What'll happen when the ship reaches the hostile base? I wonder what it'll be.
Yeah.
And then just an explosion, and I got the thing. Tonight we drink to so and so. Died livery.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And these get embellished by clauses. Clauses are really cool because they unlock as you unlock the tech tree, basically. So as you liberate, you get more of these clauses. And these are little modifiers. So silence, which, no alarms. Enigma, no living witnesses. Bloodless, no kills. Pacifist, no damage. Ghost, no one can know you're there at all.
Yeah. Yeah. What's cool is that those are not make or break. So if you take a ghost mission and somebody sees you, you're still going to finish it and you're still going to get some liberation. It's just going to drastically reduce the reward that you get. So it is still worth finishing these if you feel like you can get out alive, just so that it's not entirely lost.
Yeah. And one thing that's worth noting here, just because I don't know if it shows up anywhere else in the notes, there's almost no penalty for failure.
Yep.
In this, if you quit a mission or if you fail it and don't die, nothing happens.
Yeah.
That is so friendly to this, and you get as many tries as you need.
Yeah.
For like your personal mission or the named missions. So you can jet, like if things are going bad, the enemy knows I'm there and stuff, like blast yourself out a window, come back with better equipment. That is fine.
And like that harmonizes so well with the fact that the game is all about experimentation, right? Like once I figured out that this game would reward me with, for trying stuff by actually making it possible for my weird little notions to be executed within game, yes, that motivated me to continue doing it, but like nothing discouraged me from trying really dumb stuff. And having it pay off a lot of the time.
It's actually like, other than Horizon Zero Dawn, it's actually a weird theme to this month. Because Stanley Parable is all about, the bounding box of what's possible and being rewarded for trying things. And then this is obviously that mechanically. And then I would say Prey is that within a more traditional game structure, being kind of an 04, being an 0451 kind of dealy.
Yeah.
So, there are different, depending on all these things above, and then the guard loadouts, what kind of shield offense they have. The missions have difficulties, easy, medium, hard, audacious, and mistake. And easy are, like you graduate from those pretty quick. Those are extremely easy. Yeah. And medium is also pretty easy.
Yes.
It's worth saying. Hard is kind of your bread and butter. In the game, at least in my experience. Like I did some audacious missions and succeeded at a few, but most of my time was spent on hard missions.
Same. And kind of smartly, as you spend time with the game, and I think as you liberate stations, it starts giving you fewer options for easy and medium. Like maybe there'll be like one easy, two medium, but then the rest are going to be ones that range from hard to mistake. And then eventually you unlock the glory missions, which are the hardest of them all. There are 5 ranks of those. And again, those only are for bragging rights.
Yeah. Which we don't engage in.
Nope.
There are also other special attributes that can be given to missions. My favorite from a design perspective is the auto glitch missions. These tend to be audacious or mistake missions that are really hard, but the client will teleport you away as soon as you're in danger. So this is saying, you maybe aren't good at the game yet, but check out and see what the hard missions are like. Give it a shot, because you might surprise yourself and you have no risk. Again, it's that carrot philosophy as opposed to the stick in terms of trying to get players out of their comfort zone.
So like you have fewer, you don't get an attempt to retry if you screw things up. If you auto glitch out, it's an automatic fail for that mission. But also if you glitch out early on, you probably weren't equipped for it anyway.
Nothing bad happens. It's just you got to see what a hard mission looks like, which is useful from a player knowledge perspective at the very least.
You have to figure out like, okay, I didn't realize how big these ships could get. I didn't realize how many guards would be congregating like right outside the pods in them, etc.
Oh, armor doesn't mean damage reduction.
No, armor means fuck you.
It means damage nullification. Like it's a rock, paper, scissors thing. So it's not, I cannot power through this, There are also fiasco note missions. These give you a discount for your personal mission. So each one is worth 40 acids off your thing. So just imagine an additional 40 acid pay for that, which is huge. Like the easy missions, just to give everyone an idea, the economy are like 10 or 11, and then hard are like 50.
Yes.
And then they go up from there.
Yeah. Something I love about the Fiasco Note missions is that you don't have to complete the mission to get that bonus. So all you have to do is reach the terminal where the intel is stored. So you can prioritize going and getting that and pick those missions even if you don't intend to succeed at them. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you get the benefit even if you duck out. Ones that I really enjoyed, although they often resulted in me dying, Warzone, the Warzone modifier pops up on audacious mistake missions. This happens when a ship is in enemy territory and it will be under fire by enemy factions, which means that you're trying to do all of this while potentially a missile could come in, hit a room that you're in or going to, and suck you out into the vacuum of space or kill you.
Yeah. These are very difficult. I did not do a whole lot of these.
Yeah.
Just because they didn't pop up a lot for me, but they're super cool.
Yeah.
As an idea. I also did not do a defector mission. I kind of ran out of time for this. Did you end up doing these? Tell me more about defector missions.
Yeah, defector missions are fun. So every base that you clear has kind of this defector mission that is associated with it. These are hand designed, actually. Hand designed ships with you're playing as like a character who is in the story defecting from that base, and the character's loadout is predefined as well. Is designed for this. So this is a way for you without risking your actual character that you're progressing to like mess around with a different kind of weapon or get into these different situations. Oftentimes, like these are challenging, but also very empowering as well. Again, because you're operating with that net, it doesn't matter if you fail. And I didn't do an awful lot of these just because I found the regular missions to be, more rewarding because they kept that liberation meter going up. But these are a neat idea to add in.
Yeah, my understanding these are kind of like exhibition matches or something.
Yeah.
Like this is fun, but it's a little masturbatory. And it's for once you've maybe you've maxed out your text tree or effectively have maxed out.
Yeah.
Your text tree. So, yeah, I did not do a whole lot about that. Every mission is going to be against one of these 4 factions. We talked about that. They control a wing of the nebula. If you hover over that part of the nebula, you see who controls it. And they have different loadouts and kind of philosophies.
Yep.
That make them different challenges. So you can and should like prioritize certain ones when you are early on, because there's definitely a difficulty curve here.
Like definitely go for the off-world security guys because they will not kill you. They will knock you out and they will still airlock you, but they know that you're going to be able to pick yourself up.
Yeah. They also give you the coolest breach pod.
Yes.
And they, I think that their wing tends to favor non-lethal things in terms of unlocking stuff in the ship, which is really useful because not only for capture missions, but also one of the attributes guards can have is they explode on death. So you want to be able to knock out guards.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. I mean, we can just lead with that one because you should go with it. Like the off-world security, they're like cops. They're literally just here to enforce the law. You can, when you clear out one of these factions, an NPC from that faction will show up in your bases and you can talk to them. Like they are fanatical about not killing people. I think one of them says, I would break every finger on somebody's hand if it meant that they wouldn't kill somebody with them, Yeah.
That's kind of their whole philosophy. None of these guys are great.
Yeah.
There's degrees. There's one that's clearly the villain one. But these guys are also not great.
Yeah.
The next easiest one is the Foundry. I found these are miners who defected from the Sovereign, who we'll talk about in a moment. They're engineers. They look at every problem as an engineering, problem. And that's kind of their limitation. Their ships have larger rooms, which is a big deal. Because of line of sight and cover and such. And their guards are more likely to be armored, but they're also more likely to be armed with wrenches. So this is the other non-lethal faction. So going up against these is good because you're not going to end up with permanent debuffs to your breath holding ability if you fail.
Yeah. Or your blood holding ability.
Yes. Yeah. How much blood I can hold on to.
Yeah, at a given time.
Some.
Some. My favorite one from a story perspective is the glitchers.
Mm-hmm.
These are scavenger guys. They are originally from way on the other side of the galaxy, and they, their whole focus is on teleportation, glitching, and stuff like that. They actually just by experimenting warped themselves to the other side of the galaxy without the ability to warp themselves home. So they're kind of migratory, and they show they're here so they can gather up resources and stuff. And all of their ships are very confusingly laid out. There's no real logic to it at all. And they're pretty difficult to navigate. And their dudes oftentimes rely on teleport gadgets and stuff. They have the attribute that'll like warp them to you if they hear you.
In the story, these are the guys who brought teleportation technology to this section of the galaxy.
Yeah.
So they ended up stranded here, but they also were able to teleport, and everyone else was like, shit, know? So the way that they kind of put together their piecemeal society is through stealing.
Yeah.
Just teleporting into ships, taking what they need and teleporting out.
Very
cool.
The NPC that you get from this, their surname is 60. Like your last name in the society is how many successful warps you have gone through. Warping 60 times is unheard of because there are so many ways that it could go wrong. Most people just end up, with mismatch errors and die as a result.
Yeah. The final one, the kind of villain, is the Sovereign, which is a big evil corporation, more powerful than most governments. They talk about how there is a board of directors, but it's a sham because they only do things that increase profit, like they're controlled by the shareholders. And it is like basically, a huge omni corporation. They always use lethal weapons. So do the glitchers as well. These guys also always use lethal weapons, and kind of end up being the toughest of the factions to go up against, I found, because of that.
Yeah. I definitely would steer away from these early on in a given character's run. Oftentimes because like the regular rank and file guards usually have the long blades on them, and they will do their dash at you. It is rough and difficult to get around.
Let's talk about the different traits that these guards can have.
Yes.
So shield and armor are both huge problems in this. You have to be equipped to deal with them. And again, we talked about that perfect information. Like you'll know when you're going to come up against these things if you look.
Yeah.
Shields are electronic energy shields that'll block all incoming attacks. They can be always on or conditional. So they can be a thing where they only turn on when an alarm is set. That's an important distinction because if you're stealthy, they don't matter.
Right.
And the way you counter these is with a crash beam, which will get rid of the shield and basically shut down any electronic thing, or the subverter, which reverses the polarity. So the enemy shots will bounce off the shield back at them.
Yeah. Love that. Love anytime I can turn an enemy stuff against them. Armored enemies are harder to deal with than shielded enemies. Primarily because I found that acid traps and acid stuff was rarer than subverters and crash beam stuff. So armored enemies, this is damage nullification. They will no-sell any attack that you do with them that is not an explosion and that is not an armor-piercing round. And armor-piercing rounds are incredibly expensive. One way to deal with the armor and make them vulnerable is to use acid. There is like a weapon that sprays acid that is very rare, and there are acid traps that you can set for them to walk into.
There's also one of the things that you can do when you're doing your tech tree is kind of try to make a beeline for the acid or armor piercing long blade. I had a character start with that.
Ooh.
And that ended up being a very long lived character for me.
Nice.
Because I could take armor missions with no problem. Yeah. So you can always blast somebody off an airlock, or teleport them out of an air out into space. That will kill anybody.
Yeah.
And then guards will have these kind of other factors that are situational. So we talked about the emergency shields that pop up. We talked about the enemies that explode when they're killed with a lethal weapon. You have to knock them out. Bosses or guards can also have heat sensors, which are these radiuses around them which they can detect you. So you have to come at them from the outside of that.
Yeah. Those end up being a good way to lure people in without using a resource, actually. You can just step into the radius of those, and then they'll get a little, huh? And then they'll come and investigate where you were. Yeah.
Glitch dash means that if something is suspicious or they see a body or something, they teleport to it immediately, which is disorienting.
Yep.
For you. And this took me a long time to get used to. And then for me, the hardest one was lifelink. This I did not love because I don't like pure non-lethal stealth usually.
Yeah.
In video games, like I found this very difficult to get around when coupled with a harsh or short alarm penalty.
Yeah. What's funny about lifelink, so what this does, it will alert all members of the crew if any of them are harmed. What this actually does is turn it into a worse, older stealth game where, doing any kind of action to take somebody out means that everybody has perfect knowledge about what's going on and everybody goes on alert, as opposed to, a more sophisticated stealth game where it's, more situational, and, only small parts, and only the people who can see you or hear you are alerted. These, lifelink only showed up like primarily in liberation missions or in incredibly difficult ones, and I tried to avoid them if I could.
Yeah, it's a really difficult modifier.
Yeah.
So also good to ignore. Added in one of the patches are critters called contractors. So one of the things that can happen in an alarm, we talked about when the alarm goes off, when it reaches 0, it flies back to a base and you fail the mission. The other thing is that reinforcements can start trickling in through a teleport pod. And these tend to be contractors. These are specific boss guards that have specific kind of superpowers. Like think of them like almost like special infected and Left 4 Dead.
Yeah. And each of them is a nightmare in their own way.
Yeah. These guys are tough. You want to avoid them.
Yeah.
If possible.
Yeah. Kind of in ascending order of difficulty, like I ran into far more defenders, and even though they are, let's say some of the more mild ones, because I ran into so many of them, I have a really negative, associations with them. So defenders, they'll roll around, and they grant an uncrashable, unsubvertible shield to any guards that happen to be near them. And the tooltip on them says, in an act of great irony, the defender shield itself can be crashed and subverted. So what you have to do is crash or subvert him, kill him, and then the other guards will be vulnerable. So it changes the attack order. It changes your order of operations.
I did not run into a lot of these for one reason or another. I had tons of jammers in my things, but very few defenders. But defenders, like, even if the guard layout does not have armored or shielded enemies, it means you need to bring your shield piercing kit.
Yeah.
There. Jammers lay down a little device that puts out this big square field that disables your gadgets. You can go turn that off, but you have to get there and you can't use your gadgets along the way. So that's really tricky. Gadgets are not weapons, but they are incredibly useful.
Yeah, I rely on them. Yeah.
Yeah.
The trackers, these are also pretty bad. What they do is they know your exact location at all times. And you can tell when one of them's going to be heading to you because you see like projected footprints on the ground that are headed in your direction. You need to crash them immediately because if they spot you at all, they will shoot you with their high velocity rifle. In addition to the sentry turrets, this is the only other gun that is hit scan. There is no way for you to pause and then get out of the way of this thing. If they see you, you die.
Yeah. And then finally, predators, which are the kind of the melee version of that, almost. Instead of knowing where you are, they have a sensor range, and if you step into it, they will warp to you and kill you.
Yeah.
So you either, if you subvert them when they warp, they'll warp into space. Joke's on them. Or you crash them to take this ability away, or you get the jump on them. Like you can shoot them from outside of their sensor range.
Yeah.
Here, but this feels designed to fuck over melee builds.
Yeah. And when you get the alert on this and the reinforcements, these can roll in, either the same ones, a few of them in a row, or they can, be varied when they come in one after the other. So
like a trickle.
yeah. And like regardless, you want to finish your mission as soon as possible because they're not going to stop.
Yeah. Yep. These were added, which means that there are stations that have the mission type old timer, which means that, they don't have these. It's classic signature before they patch these in. And these kind of different things that will pop out do unlock as you liberate stations. Yeah. So as you mentioned, the difficulty options scale with your offense options. Yeah. Let's get into let's talk about cool teleporters you get.
Let's talk about the toys.
Because this is the coolest part of the game. Just a bunch of real fun articulations on what a teleporter could do.
Yep. And lots of accidents trying to figure out exactly how to use them, and try to figure out like what corner cases they're applicable to. I was surprised at how much variation there was, like even among the weapons and stuff that you get.
Yeah, and there were a whole class of weapons I didn't even really get a chance to use.
Yeah,
even though I put in a good amount of time on this, I just didn't end up finding the situation.
Well, what did you find yourself relying on?
Melee weapons.
Yeah,
primarily melee weapons, and then I ended up finding a legacy heirloom concussive silent shotgun, which was my room clearer.
Yeah.
In terms of weapons, and then in terms of teleporter, visitor all the way.
Oh yeah.
Did so much cool shit with the visitor. I love the visitor so much.
Yeah. So like guns, you have like pistols, shotguns, and then like automatic rifle kind of things. Automatic, like I tried messing with those. Ammo is so rare. It ended up not being a thing. Shotguns ended up being what I mostly went in for. Like a silent shotgun just turned any mission or any series of missions into a slaughter. Yeah.
Really, really easy to use. There are also melee weapons that are either lethal or non-lethal. The kind of trade-off is the non-lethal ones have knockback. Which can knock an enemy into view, of an area, which you can use to your advantage if you want someone to come investigate a body.
Yeah.
One of the weird second order tricks that I figured out kind of late in my play is I was using the concussion hammer a lot, which has huge knockback. Right after you hit somebody, you can pause and then pick them up. Out of the air.
Yep.
So you hit them to knock them back, and you just kind of grab their lapels so they don't fly into view of someone else. Very cool.
Yeah. The concussion hammer was so fun. That was the primary thing that would send people out of windows for me.
Yep. Incredibly fun.
And if you manage to get a drop on an armored enemy with that, that will actually knock them back and get them, get you a little bit of time to get around them if you would like to.
Yes. There are a bunch of cool little gadgets, including 4 teleport based ones that all operate, and in the lore of this, teleporting isn't perfect again. So they each have these conditions on them that are really fun. The swapper lets you change places with an enemy. And if you do that and the enemy can't see you, they'll just be confused and they'll just kind of walk around in circles for a little while. But this can go through walls.
I'm losing large periods of time.
Yep. Take that, sovereign. But these all have radiuses, and you don't need line of sight for them. It's important to say.
Yeah.
So you can swap, you can just literally, if somebody's on the other side of a locked door, you can just, instead of opening the door or trying to find the key, you can just swap places with the guy on the other side of the door.
You can stand in front of a friendly sentry gun and swap somebody into your position, so they can be taken out. If you have one of these that you're not worried about using the charge, or you can swap people into your pod, which is kind of traps them and knocks them out.
knocks them out immediately.
Yeah.
Got your paws on your side. The Sidewinder is the closest thing to an all-purpose warp, but you have to be able to reach that place with an uninterrupted path.
Yeah, so the trick to this, it's an uninterrupted path, but the uninterrupted path does not have to be all within the radius.
Yes.
As long as there is no door or no other obstruction, an airlock, etc., between you and the point you want to warp to, the path can be infinitely long, and it can veer outside of the radius. These ended up being the most useful for for making quick escapes, actually. So, if you had a time limit before the ship hit an enemy station, a couple of charges on these would make it so you could get to your get to your pod as quickly as possible.
And then my favorite one, because it took me a little bit to figure out how it was awesome, is the visitor, which lets you teleport anywhere in a pretty wide radius. But you can only stay there for a couple seconds. A little energy thing will follow you and warp you back. And that seems like not very useful, but every single goal that you have in a ship, other than clearing out the ship, you can do in 2 seconds. So getting a rechargeable visitor is like a huge, huge boon, because if you want to steal, if you want to take over the ship, you just pop over to the area, set the course, and then it doesn't matter if you pop back. You can go behind enemies, like, hitting them with a sword. Another enemy walks in, you teleport behind them, hit them, and then back in your original space. Like, this is really, really empowering and cool. And I'm kind of surprised I have not seen a limited time teleport be used in a different game. As kind of an alternative to Blink. I love a Blink. Like, I'm not going to get rid of a Blink, but in terms of just like a drawback, you would have to make it a little more interesting.
You would almost have to expand the effective time, because 2 seconds here is basically nothing, because you have the ability to pause. You can do once you get to the destination, you can pause and then plan out what you're going to do, with the remaining 1 and a fraction of a second. In a more action heavy kind of thing, I could see that being a little bit less useful.
You need some kind of time slowing. Or something. The final teleportation thing you have are glitch traps, which will send an enemy who walks on them to a point that you choose, which is probably going to be space.
Love these things. So, these end up, all traps are reusable, actually. Like, they'll recharge when you go back to a friendly place. At the very least, some of them will automatically recharge, just with their different attributes. But this is the most reliable way to clear out large populations of armored or shielded guards.
There are 3 levels. I mean, this can apply to all the stuff we're talking about, including weapons. There are kind of 3 levels of charge. There's limited numbers, which it just has ammo, and once it's out, it's out. There are ones that recharge once you come back to base, and then ones that will recharge on mission. And those latter 2 are incredibly valuable. And they also correlate with money value. If something is not rechargeable, it's not really worth anything.
Right.
Starting a character with a rechargeable version of almost any of these things kind of shapes your run. I have a rechargeable crash beam. I'm going to be using the crash beam on doors willy-nilly, because I'm not really using a resource for that.
It's not disposable. I don't have to find a new one. I just have to satisfy the conditions to get that charge back. We talked about crash beams and subverters. One of the other ones of those that is really useful is key cloners. You can activate those and just get the authorization off of any nearby guard that happens to be in the radius. So you don't have to kill that guard or get to a panel to turn off those doors.
Really, really good for ghost missions. Stealth shields make you invisible from one direction that you're facing. Last for a certain amount of time, but again, you have manipulation over time. Same thing with energy shields. That go in the directions, and there's one that is an emergency shield that makes you immune to all damage for 3 seconds as well. Slipstream is bullet time. You can turn this on and move really fast. There's a hangover effect to this. Like, after it's done, your character like moves in a real weird way.
Kind of
Like they'll
lurch.
keep moving in a direction. Yeah, they lurch. So you have to make sure, if you use this, you want to clear the area.
Yeah.
You don't want to end this with enemies about.
Yeah, slipstreams end up being really useful even in a game with pause. Not because you're looking for reaction time, but because the bullet time greatly reduces the cooldown on any weapons that you have. So it lets you shoot faster, and if you're using a long blade, which has more time in between swipes, becomes a viable way to take out a bunch of people with one weapon.
Yeah. You can also unlock different pod types that are associated with the factions that you have. So each faction has a different pod type they can use. I only got 2 of them.
Yeah.
Here I got the brick and the I got 3. I got the brick, the angel, and the sovereign one, the stealth one.
Okay.
Which is not very good.
Yeah. What's that? Like no ship will like fire missiles on you if you get in there, get in front of them, or what's
basically that? Like you have a silent thrust that you can use, and you are cloaked from like ship defenses.
Okay.
But you can also just go up behind the ship.
Yeah.
The ship defenses are pretty directional.
It's what I do, like all the time. Yeah. Actually, it's what this game is mostly about.
Yeah.
Yeah. The angel one that you get from off-world security is really good. Basically, that has a medical bay in it, which cuts any of your lethal injury penalties in half.
Well, it also has a tractor beam
that
will pull you in as well, so it makes it easier to catch yourself. There.
Yeah.
The brick, as we mentioned, has ramming speed. It is hard to aim because it is always a moving target, but you can ram and destroy a ship segment.
Yeah.
And slam into dock. The other thing, like I like this as well. The other thing I didn't like about it is it always sets off the alarm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just, I never got, like I want to see a lot of high level play with this, but I just had a hard time making it work.
Yeah.
I never unlocked the glitcher ship.
Neither did I. What does that do?
Which can teleport and dock 2 ships from a distance.
Yeah. So that reduces the amount of like bumbling, trying to get your key into the lock.
Yes. It's useful if you're got a countdown.
Yeah.
Going on. These are all cool. They cost money.
Yeah.
As you do them, and you don't typically need them. The ones you have are good.
Yeah.
The default breacher pod is fine. But if you have extra money, you can spend them on these things for specific tactics.
Yeah. Before we do like the story, do you have like an especially harrowing run, or was there like a particular strategy that was like, I can't believe that they let me do this?
Not that we haven't talked about already. Like the examples of cool things that you can do are things that I did. In the game, primarily like I got a lot of satisfaction. Like it was very fun to get caught and, teleport around and shield around and take out a bunch of guards. The most satisfaction I got was from ghosting levels basically on accident through clever teleporter use. Just like, I'm just going to, zip on over to the thing, grab the item and get out of here. And I didn't kill anybody or do anything.
Yeah.
That felt really slick in this. But yeah, nothing I haven't really talked about. And I feel a little bit like recounting it moment by moment would sound a little bit like recounting a dream.
A little bit, yeah.
It is, it's a weird thing where the bounding box of possibility on this feels infinitely wide. It's really not, because you're limited. Your set of tools is not unlimited, and set of things. It's just the thing that you can do in this. The primary cool thing you can do is so fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
more than anything.
The big thing for me, and I discovered this not incredibly early on, but around the time that armored or shield enemies started popping up. And I had chosen a mission without knowing how to deal with them. Like when I figured out, when I learned that you could fire missiles and do ship to ship combat, and I was like, all right, well, let's see if I can do this assassination mission, before I, by doing the ship to ship combat, before I back out of this, because attempting this will make me die. When I found out that was a viable strategy that could be rewarded, That was really cool. And also when the first time that I tried to do that, I didn't initially kill the guy. I just knocked the segment loose off of the ship. So what actually ended up happening was I knocked 4 rooms containing my target off, and then that was just kind of like floating in space as the rest of the ship went on. And like that is something that you can do, if you have like a certain time limit. If that's not part, if your target is not in the part of the ship that is with the rest of the ship, it kind of doesn't count.
Yeah.
So like intership combat stuff was like, oh, they're going to reward my experimentation with this, and that is a perfectly viable way to do certain mission types. That was like a huge moment for me, was realizing that.
It's also one of those things. This is kind of like a final wrap up thought, but I'm thinking about what happens when we cover a game on here, and then people talk about it in the Slack and stuff. All the cool things that we're talking about in terms of play possibility space are giving certain people panic attacks, like more or less. There's a type of player who's just like, oh man, like I cannot handle the idea of that. And I get that. There's no disparagement to that. But just know, like going into it, what Cole just described as a possibility space, you have to think is cool for this game to work for you.
Yeah.
If you don't think that sounds like a cool thing to do in a video game, and then when I say do, again, I cannot emphasize enough, like you do it. You execute the thing. You don't watch like a plucky teen do it in a cutscene. Like, no, you do it. You're the author of all of your success and failure in this game. If that sounds cool to you, that is the game.
Yeah. And especially like if that sounds cool to you, and it is very cool that this is never demonstrated to you, that like this is not, that the game is not necessarily concerned with making that possibility discoverable, right?
Yes.
If you are, if you feel, if you feel comfortable walking into a situation where that has to be arrived at through, just basically not giving a fuck if you succeed, but just thinking, okay, I want to see, to see if this is going to be rewarded for trying, then like this will be the game for you.
Yeah. Well, there's like deduction based, it's not just experimentation. You can also be like, oh, I bet you that would work, and get rewarded.
Yeah.
With that feeling. It's one of the axes on which like gamer psychographics lie, is like how cool this is. And then like the other side of it would be, I don't know, like just an incredible, like Uncharted.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of that. 100%. And you can decide where you fall on that spectrum here. So it's a weird thing where like, I feel fine about that. We're not done yet. We're still going to talk about the story a little bit, but like, I feel fine about this episode, but it is a weird thing where this is a hard game to describe why it's so awesome. If you don't just immediately get it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like describing a language.
Yeah.
Like once you understand the language of this, I went on YouTube this morning and watched some high level play of this, like people doing glory missions.
Oh, it rules.
And it's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks really neat. It's like watching somebody do like a speed run once you understand what's necessary in that, but it is almost like a language, like a video game, like a language of play that you learn through this. And that was also true in Gunpoint. Yeah. With it, but with like more like kind of like programmatic little elements with the electronic system. So,
the rewire.
But man, fuck. It makes me want to play it now. Like I could have been playing it the entire time we were recording and just kind of like had a half eye on Heatsig, and just
Please
like, oh
don't.
yeah, that's cool.
Please don't do that.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. We should talk about the story because you do get credits and there is like a goal, right? You are trying to liberate the drift, and you have to take out those strongholds to do that. And it's really tough. You have to hijack a flagship, send it careening into the enemy station, like those flagships, somewhere on the order of like 30 guards and maybe like 10, 15 bosses, something like that. Really tough. Yeah. I got 2 of them. I did off-world security and the glitchers, which was fun. Yeah.
I just did off-world security, and I have the Foundry available to me, and I died.
Yeah.
So I just did not get up to it yet.
Yeah. But yeah, once you do that, it clears that faction from the map, and it gives you this new NPC who gives you those, gives you some lore. You know, you have dialogue tree conversations with them back in the bar. It's fun learning about these. It's like reading a source book about these different things.
Yeah, and the writing is generally like sprightly and good.
Yeah,
there's not tons of story in this, but what's there is not embarrassing. Like there's no words that come out of someone's mouth are not worth saying.
Yeah,
in this game, like it's not. It respects your time in that way. Once you do all four, you can talk to Seder Fiasco, and she'll call you over and kind of explain what's actually going on. The drift, doesn't have leadership. It doesn't have a fleet. Like it was basically taken over by spies and killers, not captains. And because of this, she only kind of pretended to retire.
Right.
Instead, she's just taking a different approach. She is working for a shadow client.
Yeah, this fifth, so far unseen faction that is incredibly well resourced. So though you have been doing all of this stuff under the guise of or under the assumption that you're fighting for a free drift, without having these exterior forces exploiting it, that is not the case. Seder's goal was to weaken these established powers so this fifth faction can come in and claim the precious battery acid contained within. And I love this line, like as she's describing this, she says, if you want to start a revolution, all you have to do is convince some unhappy people that there already is one.
Yeah.
Incredibly cynical. Ending. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's cynical.
Yeah.
That's cynicism, baby. And yeah, you're basically clearing away for a 30% chance to be evil empire.
Yeah.
To come in. Fiasco says that she's 70% sure the mystery client isn't just going to kill everybody. They're rich enough, to relocate any of the collaborators, set them up with a new life so they don't have to do this. And the ending of the game, if you get the ending, is you watch this Fifth Fleet roll in and take over all the stations. So you were kind of running in place. You are not the cool revolutionary you thought you were.
Right.
Which is also going to turn some people down. But honestly, it's a game about throwing people out of windows. Like,
yeah.
You're not playing this for the story.
No, it's kind of barely there. Which is fine. I was a little bit surprised to see that it took that dark of a turn. But also, whatever. Like, after the credits roll, you just roll up, you roll up a new randomly generated galaxy and then do it again if you want.
Yeah, I'm not here for that.
Yeah.
It's not why I'm here. This is a systems-based game, and the fact that it has cool lore and a cool story is incidental.
Yeah.
It's a bonus.
Yeah.
And that's Heat Signature. A 100% badass game that I'm going to play more, and that everyone listening to this should also play.
Yeah. Just a completely no reservations on recommending this to people at all. I feel like a doofus for not having jumped into it sooner, especially with how much I like Gunpoint.
Yeah, same.
And I can't even like explain why I was like hesitant or why I just didn't immediately go after this. I think maybe because I had played an awful lot of FTL and I liked that game just fine, but it looked similar to that actually.
I like this a lot more than I like FTL.
Oh yeah.
And I know that was like, there's a whole segment of me saying that in the middle of the end of the Breach episode, but like,
yeah,
FTL is one of those games that really seems like something I should like that I kind of just didn't click for me.
Yeah.
That probably also made me a little hesitant on this.
Yeah.
This isn't even very much like Gunpoint. Like,
yeah.
This isn't like anything. And I think that's part of why it was also hard for me to get into, because even though Will was recommending it, it is a difficult game to describe, what it's actually like. And as we mentioned earlier, looking at it is no great shakes.
Yeah.
So hopefully this podcast does a service of shedding some light on why this might be worth your time, in a way that I wish somebody had done for me. And ultimately, like Icy Spiders did for us.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Game rules. I'm super happy to have seen this, and I don't know if Tom Francis and this team is working on anything else, but
Oh, my friend.
Oh, what?
They are. They're working on a game with one of my favorite titles.
Oh, what is this? Like
games.
Breach Wizards or something like that?
Yeah, Tactical Breach Wizards.
God, yeah, that is. That's those people. They've been working on that for a while, haven't they? Fuck. Yeah, no, I was already
awesome.
I was already excited about that game. I didn't put it together that it was the same people. Yeah.
Tactical Breach Wizards. So look for that on the show, probably.
Yeah, probably actually. God, that game looks amazing.
yeah. It like what again? Just philosophically, this guy is incredible.
Yeah,
it makes the cool kind of games that I like to hear.
Yep.
So thank you, IC Spiders. Thanks everybody for listening. We're going to be back next week with our premium episode about Prey, the 2017 Prey. If you have anything to say about the games we've done this month, which are Horizon Zero Dawn, The Stanley Parable, Heat Signature, or Prey, you have until the 15th of July.
Yeah.
To hit us up.
If you have thoughts about the games we're covering in August, you have until the 15th of July to write in about those. That is Sam and Max Save the World, Paradise Killer, and the premium episode for that month is Chrono Trigger. Go to Duckfeed.tv/contact if you want to write in, and write in by the deadlines there. If you have thoughts about multiple games, please separate those into multiple responses. That just makes things easier to keep track of on our end.
Yeah. If you are interested in sponsoring a game for the show, we are booked for 2021. So you can still do so. We'll do it next year, but I just want you to know that so you don't end up feeling put out by it. It is fine. We will do it. If you, if you like this, the other things you can do for us, you can leave ratings or reviews on Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict. You can check out our other shows and you can tell your friends.
Yeah.
We like all those things.
We do. We appreciate all of it. Trying to think of other business stuff and nothing right now.
We'll start talking about Duckfest 3 at some point soon.
Yeah.
This kind of snuck up on us. The weird Dunkirk of my life for the last several months, and then on top of the pandemic ending has made us feel a little disorganized, unsure of what to do. I think we are not going to do anything in person still for a while. Yeah. Just because, there's Delta variants about.
Yep.
But we will do something. Yep. For that. And apologies for that being a little bit later than it usually is and kind of lack of news. We've just been busy doing stuff.
Yeah. So keep your ear to the ground on that. We don't talk about this. There is a network Twitter. It's at Duckfeed.tv. And I'm on Twitter at Cole Ross, KOLEROSS.
Yeah. And I am at Gary Buh, GARYBUH. And until next time, what should they watch out for? Cole.
Watch out for Windows.